Also ask you about another headline that has just been released today, and that is the merger of Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines continuing to move forward. Also getting note of the role Peter Ingram will play, having stepping down and now having the Alaska Airlines CEO take over. Wanted to get your thoughts on where things are with this deal, and the thought that there will be a CEO of this company that is actually not here in Hawaii, and any other thoughts and conversations that you're having about this merger.
Sure. Big question. So this has been going on for a couple months, and I am very close to Ben, who runs Alaska Airlines. He's a good human being. We worked closely over the last 2 months. When I say we, I'm saying our administration with the federal government, saying, okay, these are the things we need. We need to make sure the routes are maintained, especially the inter-island routes. We want to see expansion of our capacity to travel as a hub, which was granted. We want to see investment in our local airports, which Alaska is going to do. We want the brand to remain intact because it is still also Hawaii or Hawaiian Airlines. If you're in Hawaii, that's very important. Another thing we fought for is make sure people didn't lose their benefits, their miles that they've accumulated, and that long-term workers stayed in their jobs. So all those things happened. So I definitely shared my opinion. Again, I have to stay out of private negotiations. There's a theme here, but I was able to share my opinion. And my opinion was, as long as you meet those criteria, the Department of Justice shouldn't really get in the way. Let them work out their differences. And so Hawaiian and Alaska came to an agreement. One of the realities is Hawaiian Airlines was losing about $1 million a day. And if they had gone suddenly bankrupt, I think they could have been, the victim of a violent takeover where we wouldn't have had the same consideration. Maybe we would have all lost our mileage. Maybe they would have cut half the jobs, whoever came in. So those things won't happen. Big deal, big day.
Yeah, I want to ask